birds make sounds like quack, quack, and here's one I really like. Next time you listen to birds, see how many sounds you can hear. SpongeBob SquarePants is next. I'm Nick Jr. One day, SpongeBob was open the door and close the door at SpongeBob's Spinner Bus. He's with Gary the Snail. It was a newspaper, and SpongeBob used a rubber band around him. And it's too tight, and he's walking. And Gary the Snail was reading a newspaper, and SpongeBob was meeting Patrick. They both too tight with the rubber bands. And they're back to normal. And SpongeBob is leaving. He's walking to the right. He said goodbye to Patrick. And Patrick is leaving. He's walking to the left. He said goodbye to SpongeBob. But wait, SpongeBob and Patrick, listen that sound. It was a small bird. It was a small clam. And then SpongeBob and Patrick took the small clam inside of SpongeBob's Spinner Bus. So SpongeBob gives the small clam. It was a huge hamburger, but it's too big. He gives a small hamburger to the small clam, but SpongeBob is gonna enjoy it instead. And Patrick has to enjoy a donut with brown chocolate icing and colored rainbow sprinkles. And SpongeBob used a plate of French fries. And then SpongeBob is holding an apple. Someone joined up. an apple, it was a worm. And then he gives the small clam, it was a worm. And the poor small clam, like a baby, he was crying. And Patrick told SpongeBob to do Dimmy Ever, and SpongeBob said, huh? There's still Dimmy Ever. I could do Dimmy Ever was. And SpongeBob made a goofy sound. That's why SpongeBob uses a SpongeBob. If it was a puppet, he made a goofy sound. And Patrick used a small clam to use a diaper that is white, like a baby, and he gives it to SpongeBob. And Patrick is pretending like it was like, he looks just like Daddy. And so SpongeBob and Patrick go with a walk. They're pretending like parents. They open the door and close the door. They went out of SpongeBob's pineapple house. And they walk to the right with the small clam. And the fish characters are going to walk to the left in the Bikini Bottom. But the fish characters, they think in their dreamy clouds. It was a sponge plus a starfish equals a small clam with a question mark. And SpongeBob and Patrick are holding a small clam. They're going to walk to the right. And they're going to slide down. They went down the slide with a small clam. They went on top of the bird. It was a bath with a small clam. SpongeBob and Patrick are pretending like birds together. And SpongeBob and Patrick told the fish character they want ice cream. And Patrick wants 2 white vanilla ice cream cones. And the fish character uses a spoon to use on top of the cone. It was a white vanilla ice cream cone. He gives it to Patrick. He wants 2 white vanilla ice cream cones. And the fish character used a spoon to use on top of the cone. It was a white vanilla ice cream cone with green gummy worms. And he gives it to SpongeBob, and SpongeBob gives it the small clam, and the small clam likes it with his tongue. It was white vanilla ice cream cone with green gummy worms. Like birds like worms. And then SpongeBob and Patrick are riding the bicycle with the small clam to the right. And then SpongeBob and Patrick are hanging upside down with the small clam, riding a bicycle to the left. And poor SpongeBob and Patrick are really very surprised to say, ooh, and they run away to the left. They're going after the small clam riding a bicycle. And then at night, SpongeBob and Patrick took care of the small clam that he was sleeping in SpongeBob's pineapple house. And SpongeBob said, shh. And then Patrick said, hey, SpongeBob. And then SpongeBob said, yes, Patrick. And that's why they're pretending like parents. They're family. So they're sleeping in SpongeBob in his bedroom. And the light switch is off. And Patrick said goodnight to SpongeBob. And Patrick said to him, that's why Patrick said goodnight to SpongeBob. And SpongeBob is saying goodnight to Patrick. So Patrick is sleeping under, and SpongeBob is sleeping on top. They're both sleeping in the bedroom in SpongeBob's pineapple house at night. In the morning, SpongeBob was working in the house, like cleaning and vacuuming with this, holding a small clam. And SpongeBob keeps working and working at his house with all the work that SpongeBob has to do. And Patrick is having his breakfast. He enjoyed it. He was really very hungry. And he enjoyed his breakfast. He used the table and he chomped them really, very speed. And Patrick's so stupid. Like, Patrick is really very hungry. He said, no. And so Patrick is leaving. He opens and closes the door in SpongeBob's pineapple house. And SpongeBob said, all right. And SpongeBob keeps working and working and working. And Patrick will come back in numbers of hours It was 2 seconds. And the narrator in SpongeBob SquarePants that saying 2 seconds later. And in the morning, in the afternoon, and Patrick is saying, phew! And it was a beautiful day, and Patrick opens the door and closes the door of SpongeBob's Pineapple Bus. And SpongeBob keeps working and working at his house, and poor SpongeBob is saying, huh? And then Patrick has to start to sit in the chair, and Patrick started watching the TV and made the bonk sound like bonk. And then Patrick is stupid, is laughing and saying, that guy got bumped in the head with a coconut. And then SpongeBob told Patrick of what long, and Patrick has to come back in, it was numbers of minutes, it was 3 minutes. And the narrator in SpongeBob SquarePants is saying, 3 minutes later. And then Patrick is saying, phew! And then it was a beautiful day. It was another beautiful day. And then it was another great day. So Patrick opens the door and closes the door in SpongeBob's Pineapple Bus. And SpongeBob, he keeps working and working and working at his house. And then Patrick has to start to sit in the chair. And SpongeBob told Patrick what long. And Patrick has to come back in numbers of hours is 5 seconds. And the narrator, SpongeBob SquarePants, is saying 5 seconds later. And next one, SpongeBob is really very tired. He said, Patrick. And then SpongeBob keeps working and working and working a lot. And SpongeBob was tired. And then Patrick has to come back in 6 minutes. And the narrator, SpongeBob SquarePants, is saying 6 minutes later. And then poor SpongeBob is really very tired of working a lot at his house. And poor SpongeBob is sad, is saying, huh? And then poor Patrick's so stupid, he's really sad. He's so stupid, like a starfish. And then Patrick has to come back. Or Patrick has to come back. And the question I can say is, oi. And the narrator in SpongeBob SquarePants has to say about 7 hours. And then the words are 7 hours later. And then SpongeBob told Patrick, and Patrick was sitting in the chair watching TV. And then SpongeBob showed that Patrick was a lot of diapers. He said, And then another one, and Patrick said, so? And SpongeBob is saying, And then SpongeBob keeps saying the same words. He showed it to Patrick. It was another one, diapers, and another one, 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 and another one. And SpongeBob is saying, and then there was Mr. Gilly dumps in, smash it down with the diapers. Like trash it down, and poor Patrick's so stupid, he's really very sad. And then, in the morning, instead of night, like in the morning, SpongeBob told Patrick, and SpongeBob said, I'll see you later at 6 o'clock. And Patrick said, 6 o'clock. And Patrick said, 6 o'clock. The same word says SpongeBob, like SpongeBob SquarePants is saying 6 o'clock. And Patrick said, 6 o'clock. And SpongeBob is saying 6 o'clock. And Patrick said, 6 o'clock. And SpongeBob is saying 6 o'clock. And then Patrick said 6 o'clock. And the narrator, SpongeBob SquarePants, is saying 12 o'clock midnight. And at night, Patrick's so stupid, he's laughing a lot. And Patrick opens the door and closes the door of SpongeBob's Pineapple Bus. At midnight, he said, and then his lights switch on and off. And it's really very beautiful at night. And Patrick said, oh, hi, SpongeBob. And SpongeBob said, hi, Patrick. And then Patrick is leaving SpongeBob alone. And SpongeBob is mean to say, he grabs it off his head. He's mean to Patrick. Patrick will not leave SpongeBob alone. And Patrick went back to Patrick's Rock's house. And at his home, is Patrick Sparks' house. He's watching TV, and he was sitting on a chair and watching TV. And SpongeBob is mean to Patrick. He used a box of donuts. He splattered on poor Patrick. And Patrick's so stupid. And SpongeBob is mean, saying, "Ugh." And then SpongeBob and Patrick are arguing a lot. But suddenly, SpongeBob and Patrick listen to that sound. There was a small bird. It was a small clam. And SpongeBob and Patrick are really very surprised to say, "Junior!" And then the small clam went off of SpongeBob's splinter bus. They went running around, and then the small clam went down off of SpongeBob's splinter bus. SpongeBob and Patrick are running to the right. They went to the right. They have to catch the small clam. They say, I'll catch her. 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 Oh, and then poor SpongeBob and Patrick keep boofing to the right of SpongeBob's splinter bus. And poor SpongeBob is inside of Patrick of his stomach. And made the pompous sound that went pop. And then poor SpongeBob went out of poor Patrick of his stomach. And poor SpongeBob and Patrick, they missed the small clam. They don't catch the small clam. Instead of SpongeBob is saying, "Can you catch him?" If SpongeBob is saying, "Did you catch him?" What does mean to it? And poor Patrick said, "No." And poor SpongeBob and Patrick are crying, saying, "We're bad parents." And poor SpongeBob and Patrick are crying a lot. And then the small clam gives a kiss to SpongeBob. And they sound, and then the SpongeBob said, "Wow!" And then the small clam bonks on poor Patrick on his head. It was a brown coconut on his head. He gives a kiss to Patrick. It was a small clam. He gives a kiss to Patrick. And Mason went, and SpongeBob and Patrick are saying goodbye to the small clam, like it was a bird. And he was flying to the left at midnight, like early in the morning, at 3 o'clock in the morning. The sun comes up, and then SpongeBob said, "You know, Patrick, it's really very good, and it's really very beautiful, pretend like parents with a really very small clam. And it's so really very beautiful, and it's stupendous, and awesome, and amazing. And it was great with us visiting." And Patrick is saying, "Yeah, let's have another." And so that's the end of SpongeBob's comments. That's why SpongeBob and Patrick are pretend like parents with a really very small clam. It's cool and great, and delightful and great. Right after it, on Nickelodeon, it's SpongeBob's Squarepants. Or I mean, that's the end of SpongeBob's Squarepants. Right after it, on Nickelodeon, it's Ren and Stimpy. And a question I could say is, don't go away. There are special surprises with you on Nickelodeon. If it was Ren and Stimpy coming right up. And thanks for watching it. And the question I could say is, don't go away. There are special surprises with you on Nickelodeon if it was Ren and Stimpy coming right up on Nickelodeon. Up next, get ready to do a happy, happy, joy, joy dance with Ren